Peace in, everyone. My name is Trey MacVelle, and this is the movie pie for Captain America Civil War. Welcome, my fellow fans of film. Sit back and relax, guys, because we got another comic book special as we do a detailed review of Captain America Civil War. Boy, am I excited to do this review. I was excited to see this movie as, really it being a culmination of all of the awesome events that's taken place in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But I have to say, going into the movie, I was a little bit apprehensive for a few reasons. One of those reasons is, unfortunately, that was the same year that Batman v Superman came out, and that movie, of course, came out before Captain America. And I was, to say the least, underwhelmed with Batman v Superman, and so I was still excited for this movie, but it dampened my excitement a little bit going into this movie. Obviously, these two movies were very different, but similar in a sense that, you have your main heroes going up against each other. And so, yeah, I just, my overall excitement kind of went down after seeing Batman v Superman. By the way, if you haven't checked out the Batman v Superman movie pie, go ahead and click right here. Please check that out, and you will understand in full detail the reason why I wasn't as excited going into this movie. But and I have to say, look, as a comic book fan, I always preferred DC comics to Marvel comics. But as far as the cinematic universe goes, it's a completely different story. The Marvel Cinematic Universe, look, let's be honest, folks. I'm a DC fan, but let's be honest. The cinematic universe for Marvel just got their act together. I mean, oh my word. They got a plan, and it's a good plan. Clearly, very successful plan. And so, but here's the thing. The other reasons why I was a little bit apprehensive is because I had two major concerns going into this movie. The first was I was wondering, is this going to feel like a Captain America movie? Because from the, commercials and trailers and promotions, it almost felt like Avengers 2.0, 2.5, And so, because you have so many Marvel superheroes in this movie. And so, Marvel at this point hadn't really done anything quite like that. As far as a single, like the individual hero film rather than the Avengers film. So that was a concern of mine, is will this movie feel like a Captain America movie? And the second concern was, will the heroes be in real danger of hurting each other? Because another thing that you glean from the trailers is like, man, they're talking about, hey, are we still friends after this? So it didn't really feel like that the stakes were, really that high as far as them hurting each other. So that was a concern. It's like, man, if this is going to be a Civil War, like I would like for it to literally be a Civil War. So because of those concerns and because of the momentum of BVS, or lack thereof, I should say, I was a little bit apprehensive going into this movie. But hey, we got the movie, and I would say I'm glad we got the movie that we got. But I'm gonna go ahead and break down this movie. But in case you don't know what this movie about, here's the thing. Basically, you got the political involvement. This is, of course, taking place after the events of Age of Ultron, and that basically the destruction of Sokovia within the events of Age of Ultron. And so this is that serves as a backdrop for this movie. And basically you got the political involvement of the Avengers in their activities, it causes a rift between Captain America and Iron Man. And that's pretty much the setup for this movie. And if you haven't checked out Movie Pies before, what I'm going to do, here's a brief forecast. This will be a detailed review. So, hey, listen, guys, there will be spoilers. If you haven't paid attention to the title, there will be spoilers in this conversation as we will break down this movie in detail. And here's the thing. We will go over all of the slices. We will go over the screenplay. We will go over the performances, the visuals, the audio, the direction, and of course, just the overall experience for this movie. Then after that, we'll go into Trey's tweaks. And then after that, the final verdict for the movie. But without further ado, let's dive into the first slice of this movie pie. And that would be the screenplay. Wow, what an amazing direction to go after the events of Age of Ultron. Overall, I have to say, I love the premise of the screenplay. There are definitely a few issues, some major issues actually, that I have with the screenplay, but I want to start with some of the things I really love about the screenplay, and that includes the fact the whole Sokovia Accord, just angle. I mean, the concept after the events of Age of Ultron, the concept after really just the events of all of the Avengers, just kind of made sense naturally. Like, it made sense that the world and the governments of the world will question the Avengers in the sense that, hey, like, whose government are you guys acting on behalf of exactly? You know, so I really love just the writing of that. Like, it really did not feel shoehorned in, and that leads me to one of my problems I have with the screenplay. And that is this, the whole Zemo bit. Now, I'm going to say this. I actually like the Zemo character. And what's interesting is that Marvel does not necessarily have a good track record with the villain characters. They really just don't. But interestingly enough, I actually really like this particular villain. I really like this character in Zemo. And not only do I like Zemo, the character itself, I mean, it's a natural character. It's a guy who was affected by what happened in Sokovia, Age of Ultron. His family, died because of the, actions of the Avengers. But here's the thing. The reason why I really love this, because we've seen the Avenger take on bad guy after bad guy. And all of these guys are just crazy powerful. And, it felt kind of refreshing, to get a villain who wasn't, a physical threat to the Avengers. He was just this extremely intelligent and, just sheer will kind of guy. And I really enjoyed that take, for a villain. And the other thing I liked about the villain is the villain, his angle was to destroy the Avengers from the inside out. Now, I love that. And I love the fact that you had a villain like that. And I love the character itself. But because of that, being the villain's motivation to tear the Avengers apart, that leads me to what I was just saying. The reason why I could not stand this, I guess, the direction that they went with this villain, with the Sokovia Accords, is because of this. In this movie, the Sokovia Accords, which I said I loved that whole idea. That was, in fact, the real thing that broke up the Avengers. And you giving me a villain that says that he wants to break up the Avengers, yet when you look at the movie, there's not a single doggone thing that Zemo did that had anything to do with the Sokovia Accords. Like, seriously, are you kidding me? It was pretty ridiculous, man. Like, come on. Like, really? The Sokovia Accords is really what broke up the Avengers. And the only thing that Zemo did was, obviously, as you saw in the movie in the end, he, played this tape that showed what Bucky did. He did all of these things and set up all of these events to set up Bucky just so he can unlock Bucky's crazy mind and get the location of, this Russian base, so he can find, these, several bad guys that are just like Bucky. In fact, worse than Bucky, only so that he can kill him. As he says in the movie, you think I wanted more of you creeps, or whatever he said. But also that he can set up so that Tony Stark can see what he had saw, and which is the fact that, of course, Bucky killed Tony Stark's parents, so that he can break up the Avengers. Well, guess what, folks? The Sokovia Accords already broken up the Avengers, and it was mighty. And so that was one problem that I had with the plot, with the whole idea that this is a villain who's trying to break up the Avengers, yet, it was mighty, coincidental that Tony Stark was even in that place in the first place. So, to me, that was a little sloppy. It was a little sloppy writing on their part. To me, the way I looked at it is like, man, like if you had wrote even just a single line from Zemo that just of him stating something along the line of, hey, I was going to leak this video, or I was going to find, or some way, Tony, I was going to find some way to show you this video, but hey, hooray, you're here. Like just some kind of indication that Zemo did not expect Tony to actually show up at that base. Otherwise, the way the movie presents it, the way it's written, it feels like it was like he expected him to be there, which the way it's written made no sense that he should have expected Tony Stark to be there. I mean, that was pretty ridiculous. And it was also pretty ridiculous, again, that this is his linchpin. This is his, cruciada of how he was going to break up the Avengers when the Sokovia Accords had already done that. Again, that was one of the main things I could not stand about the screenplay. And so within that, one of the things I did like about the screenplay, though, is this. I did really like the dialogue. The dialogue was just spot on. I mean, in fact, I would say in this movie, this is probably the most natural dialogue, really across the board, across all of the Marvel movies. And what I mean by natural is like when people said things, it actually made sense for them to say things when they said it. I'll give you an example. There's one time where, like when that interaction between Tony Stark and Captain America, like in that one part where Captain America was really, really close to signing the Sokovia Accords. That dialogue between him that started with Tony talking about his dad and bringing in the two pins, all the way from the beginning of that scene to the very end of that scene where Captain America says, I don't want to break up a pair. I mean, when you really go back and look at that dialogue, it's amazing. It is great writing. And it felt natural coming out of the two characters. It just made sense. The other thing I like about the screenplay, and the dialogue definitely plays a part in this, obviously, to carry what I'm about to say, but just the overall concept that, the character of Iron Man and the character of Tony Stark, the character of Captain America and Steve Rogers, those characters did a complete flip-flop. When you look at the trajectory of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, you have Iron Man starting off being a rogue, a guy that is untied to any government that's just going to do what he's going to do. That's how this character starts in this Marvel Cinematic Universe. And he goes from that to, oh no, I need to sign up the Sokovia Accords. We need a checkmate. I mean, not you know what I mean? Like, we need to be put in check. And then you have Captain America, who starts off, you got to go by the rules. You got to go by the government, to no, we can't let any government have us in check. And all of it made perfect sense. It was completely believable for those characters to take the positions that they took, given the sequence of events that they've been throughout the series of this Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I just thought that the writing in this movie did a great job at convincing us that these characters were where they were. For example, the writing of this movie gives us, a Steve Rogers who had already realized that Hydra he infiltrated the government. And he's seen how the agendas of the government has caused, problems. So it makes sense that he would believe what he believes. And then he goes to the funeral and, of Peggy and everything. And so, that kind of like reinforces the fact that, he should have the belief that he believes. In the same way, Tony Stark, the fact that they wrote in there that the mom of the son that got killed in Sokovia met him at the elevator, that they would give us that scene and give us that, that emotional kind of drive where Tony Stark was already feeling guilty about what happened with Sokovia, because if obviously it was pretty much his fault, being the one that basically created Ultron. That scene gave him an extra push by the time you get the Sokovia ordeal. It made sense why Tony Stark would sign up for it. So overall, I gotta say, I quite enjoyed the script. I tried to enjoy the screenplay, but again, I cannot stress enough of how much of a bother it was. And here's one other thing too. Part of the screenplay was that Wanda gets locked up and, not locked up, but, kind of put on house arrest because of what happened in the beginning of the movie. Well, one thing that I really wish that they would have stated is no one really acknowledged the fact that Wanda did what she did because Crossbones was going to blow up the people on ground level. So yes, I get the fact that Wanda kind of trapped him in her magical bubble and moved him up to the building, and a lot of people died. But folks, a lot of people were going to die on the ground level when he self-designated that he was going to explode himself. So if it wasn't for her, people would have died on the ground level. So, I get that people were upset with her actions causing the death of innocent people, but her lack of actions would have also caused the death of innocent people. And I just wish that they would have wrote at least one line that kind of acknowledged that, because throughout the movie, it kind of bothered me. Like whenever they talked about the danger of Wanda, like I really, really wished that they would have rolled in there. But anyway, that's a minor thing compared to the larger issue that I had with Zemo. And the other thing is, for whatever reason, they wrote that Steve Rogers actually knew about Bucky, and I thought that was a head scratcher to me. I mean, that was pretty ridiculous. One, I don't know how he would have known that. I seriously, I don't even know how he would have known that. I mean, there is no part in this movie or the previous movies that gave any indication that he was reading up on Bucky, and it just, to me, it made no sense. And it actually took me out of the very last scene in the movie, where, obviously Tony Stark is fighting against Captain Bucky, because it's just the whole time I'm feeling like, man, why would Cap know about this anyway? And it kind of made me feel like, Cap, you're kind of a jerk, dude. Especially considering the fact that this whole thing happened with Rhodey. And honestly, throughout this movie, I felt like Captain America was kind of a jerk. I get it. And I was actually, to me personally, I was actually on Captain America's side. That was the side I was on. I totally got where Captain America was coming from. But, throughout the movie, like, I wish that there were more said by Captain America to express some kind of sympathy for the other people on the other side. But I didn't get any kind of sympathy. He was just headstrong, doing what he was doing. And I get that. And I'm glad that he did that. And I wanted Captain America to be like that, because that's Captain America. That's great. But I wish that they would have given a little bit more from his character that showed that he has some sympathy for his fellow teammates and where they were coming from. And I certainly wish that he would have expressed some sympathy for what happened with Rhodey. Like, just some kind of sympathy, and even more sympathy for what happened with Bucky being a person that killed his freaking parents. Like, come on, dude, can you extend a little bit of understanding? And then on top of him not extending any understanding, somehow they wrote that he knew that Bucky, killed Tony's parents. and somehow he just didn't say anything to Tony because he was trying to protect him. Man, that's kind of ridiculous. I will say I'm glad that they did add the very last scene in the movie that he wrote a letter to Tony, apologizing basically. That kind of saved it a little bit, but again, it did still bother me. But anyway, what did you guys think about the screenplay? It is time for me personally to give this thing a score and a verdict. Did you guys agree with some of the thoughts? Did you disagree with some of the thoughts? Please tell me, how did the screenplay make you feel? Were you annoyed about the coincidental arrival of Tony Stark with Zemo for his whole plans? Or did you kind of roll your eyes at it and just moved on? Comment on the section below. Tell me what were your thoughts. I'm going to give this slice, the screenplay, a score and a verdict. And for this slice, the screenplay, it gets 75% of 25 points. And that means that it is a good slice. Now it is time to move on to the second slice of the smoothie pie, and that would be the performances. Boy, do I have to say, I thoroughly enjoyed the performances in this movie across the board. Across the board. It was wow. And, across the board, they were great. I want to highlight a couple of them. Let's start with this, folks. Oh boy. Chris Evans as Captain America. I don't know how he does it, but with each movie, this guy gets better and better as Captain America. He did what he needed to do as the lead in this movie. This was his movie, folks. This was his movie. And you know how I said the concern that I had was, whether or not if this was going to be a Captain America movie or not. Well, his performance as Captain America did a great job at helping me feel like this was a Captain America movie. He owned this movie and he owned this role. Wow. Great job, Chris Evans. Of course, Tom Holland as Spider-Man. Wow, he was definitely, the performances across the board, I really enjoyed, but these are the highlights for me. Tom Holland as Spider-Man was awesome. I thought he did a great job. The little role that he played, I felt like that was Spider-Man. I felt like that was Peter Parker. And the person that he stole the scene, every scene he was in was, of course, Chadwick Boseman as Black Panther. He was amazing. He was what I talked about walking out of this movie. I mean, the fight scenes, it was amazing, but the action was great. But here's the thing. The performances that Chadwick Boseman gave really held my attention, just with the emotional levity that he gave. The scenes between him and Black Widow was great. And Chadwick Boseman really pulled off some amazing performances, some performance scenes. And here's the thing, though, guys. The standout performance for me was Iron Man. Oh, who was Iron Man? That's right, folks. Robert Downey Jr. was Iron Man. I said from the beginning that Robert Downey Jr. just disappears into this role. But I gotta say, in this movie, I think that Robert Downey Jr. has given us the best acting as Iron Man that he has given us in any other movie prior to it. Like the emotional range that Iron Man has, going from giving that speech when we first see him to the emotions that he displayed when he found out that Bucky killed his parents. I felt for the man. Even though I disagreed with his particular position, I understood his position, and I certainly understood the role that he played. I mean, he did such a good job. I got to give this slice an extra bonus point because his performance was spectacular. It carried the emotional weight that it needed to carry. And I really loved it. But yes, again, the performances I enjoyed across the board. Those were the highlights for me. What were the highlights for you guys? Which performance did you enjoy more than the most? Me, like I said, I love Chadwick Boseman. I love Tom Holland. My standout was Tony Stark personally, but what was your standout? Comment in the section below. Tell me what you think about this slice of the pie. But I'm going to go ahead and give this slice a score and a verdict. And for this slice, it gets 92% of 20 points plus an extra bonus point. And that means it is an excellent slice. Now it's time to move on to the next slice of this movie pie, and that would be the visuals. Oh my word. If for this particular movie, the word that I sum up when I think of when it comes to the visuals is amazing choreography. They got the guys that worked on the John Wick movie to help with the action scenes. And I will say that aside from the beginning of the movie where there was some shaky cam kind of stuff where it was hard to see the action, overall I did like the action in the beginning in that opening scene, or rather the beginning of the movie, not the opening scene, but the beginning of the movie. It was cool, but there was some shaky cam stuff, and it was so inferior to the rest of the action in the movie, to the rest of the choreography and the fight scenes in the movie. And I love that they did not continue that shaky cam crap. I mean, oh my word, it was amazing. It was amazing. A little nitpick was, as far as the visuals, visually, it was extremely distracting for, this is going to sound weird, but just, whenever they enter the scene, they open the scene, and they wanted to, just show you or tell you, hey, what city is they in, the location of where they were. I mean, they used some extremely massive text. I mean, literally, the text went across the entire screen, right in the middle of the screen. It would say Brooklyn or whatever. It was a little distracting. It was just like, you guys didn't need to make that text that huge. I mean, it was a little distracting. But anyway, visually, it kind of took me out of the movie for a brief second. But again, I admit that that's a nitpick. But other than that and the shaky cam stuff, I thought the visuals were amazing. And folks, we got to talk about it. The choreography in that scene, the scene I'm talking about, that airport scene, that was the action sequences in that scene was probably, I would say, the best action sequence that I've seen across any comic book movie, period. And maybe even I would include action movies in that too. It was amazing. And it was long, and I loved it. I loved it, and I ate it up, and I wanted so much more of that. In fact, because of that scene and the action sequences that took place there, I got to give it an extra bonus point. But what did you guys think about the visuals? I thought the visual effects was great. I thought the scenery, as far as the cinematography was pretty good, but overall the choreography is what really stood out to me the most in this movie. Besides the shaky cam crap, I really loved the visuals of this movie. But what did you guys think? Comment in the section below. Tell me, did you like the visuals? Did that text across the screen bother you nearly as much as it bothered me? I know I'm nitpicking, but I'm curious to see if anybody else had a similar annoyance. Either way, comment in the section below. It is time for me to give this slice a score and a verdict. And for this slice, the visuals, it gets 87% of 5 points plus an extra bonus point. And that means it is a great slice. Now it's time to move on to the next slice of the movie pie, and that would be the audio. Now, with the audio, this slice of the pie, I have to say it was not necessarily underwhelming, not at all, but it wasn't something that I truly noticed or cared for within this particular movie. However, I will say that Zemo's theme was amazing. I absolutely love Zemo's thing. In fact, that was pretty much the only saving grace for the audio here. I didn't feel like the audio really added to it, to this movie at all. I didn't feel like it particularly took away from it, but whenever I, for those of you who don't know, the way I review this slice of the pie, the audio, it's either going to be one of two things. Either it is so seamless that I don't notice it because it is ingrained within the narrative of the movie, or I do notice it and it adds to my enjoyment of the film. Well, the audio in this particular movie did not do either. It wasn't particularly noteworthy, nor did I feel like it blended within the narrative either, except for Zemo's theme. Zemo's theme, not only did I like the theme, but Zemo's theme felt really natural. It really blended in with the film. Next time you see the movie, you'll see what I mean. When you watch the movie and then look at every time that Zemo's theme is on, when they show Zemo and what he's doing, it feels natural with what's going on the screen. And I thoroughly enjoyed that. So at least that's my thoughts of it. I don't know, but what about you guys? I'm not saying the soundtrack was bad. I'm not saying the score was bad. It's just it didn't really do much for me personally, other than Zemo's theme. Did you guys even notice Zemo's theme? Did you like it? What did you think? Please tell me. I'm really curious to see what other people thought about the audio of this film. And obviously, of course, the sound effects was great. I did like the sound effects. It was pretty good. Wasn't enough to really blow my socks off per se. It was just kind of normal, but it was still good. I don't want to overstate the fact that the sound effects was good. But what did you guys think about this slice of the pie? Comment in the section below. I'm gonna go ahead and give this slice a score and a verdict. And for this slice, the audio, it gets 79% of 5 points. And that means it is a good slice. Now it is time to move on to the fifth slice of this movie pie, and that would be the direction. Anthony and Joe Russo, you two had a huge task before you, because this was not an easy movie to direct. There were so many moving parts. I mean, of course, and every movie has a lot of moving parts. And then, of course, when you're dealing with a comic book movie, it has more moving parts than your typical movie. This is a big budget movie, absolutely, but within this particular movie, there were many moving parts, especially considering that the characters that they had to navigate were characters that were rich from so many different movies before it, and they had to make it work. You guys made it work. Russo brothers, you made it work. Remember how I started off saying that the two biggest concerns that I had going into this movie was, one, will it feel like a Captain America movie despite having all of these Marvel characters? And two, will these characters actually, feel like that they're in danger of hurting one another? Yes. Those concerns were put to rest with the direction you guys had in this movie. You did a wonderful job. I truly enjoy your direction in this film. For that particular reason. First of all, you got amazing performances out of your actors and actresses. What a great job that you got out of all of your performance. And here's the thing. I would say this, that if it wasn't for the believability across the board in all these characters, particularly with Iron Man, this film would not have worked. Because in order for this film to work, you had to believe that the individual characters chose the sides that they chose. And not only did you have to believe that they chose the side that they chose, but you had to believe it. You had to believe that they chose it and believe what they believed so hard that they were willing to go up against their fellow teammates. And within that vein, you made it really believable that they would fight each other. Like during that airport scene, the fact that you guys added that scene with Rhodey that showed that we're dealing with some real danger here, folks, was very needed. It was very, very, very needed. And I truly appreciate that. And I truly appreciate how you added so many scenes, like that scene with Tony Stark when we first meet him talking to, the college. And, that scene that we get with, Natasha Romanoff and, Chadwick Boseman, his Black Panther. Like that scene, neither of these scenes that I'm talking about had anything to do with Captain America. But those scenes were so much needed within the film, and those scenes did not take away from the fact that this was a Captain America movie. And all of that is just directing. All of that is just directing. So I truly appreciate that. The one thing that I will say that I wish you guys would have done a better job at, and that is with the Zemo storyline. Now, I actually love the Zemo character. And by the way, I didn't mention this. Another standout in the performances was David Bruhl's Zemo. I really enjoyed David Bruhl. Like, he was amazing in this movie. Like, just spectacular. That again, hats off to the directing here. Russo brothers, you did a great job getting that performance out of him. But I will say that there wasn't enough within the narrative of this character. I wish you guys could have either added a scene or replaced a scene that gave a little bit more explanation as to what his plan was exactly and what exactly was he trying to do. Because as I said, with the first slice of the pie, the screenplay, the Sokovia Accords really is what broke up the Avengers. So if you were going to say that Zemo's motive was to break up the Avengers, there needed to be a little bit more with Zemo that showed in a clear way what exactly was he trying to do and how was he planning to accomplish it. Because the way that the scene worked, the way the narrative worked, the way you guys directed it, you didn't give me anything that showed what a clear direction of what he was trying to do. And so that left a lot of people scratching their head by the time they got in the end of the movie. That's like, man, that was mighty convenient. And so, yes, not only was it written in a convenient way, it was also directed in a convenient way. Like, if you would have added a scene where Zemo was, leaked information to Tony Stark or something, I don't know, whatever it is, just added something that made it seem like he planned for Tony Stark to actually be there. And the reason why that's so important is because you're giving me a character. You're directing this guy to say he wanted an empire to fall, as he said. And he was the cause to break up the Avengers. So show me that he broke up the Avengers, rather than just him, showing a doggone tape. So to me, that was just a little bit like, okay, really? I did like that you had Zemo kill all of those guys. I get all of that. But I wish you would have directed, again, giving us a little bit more with the Zemo character that showed that he, I don't know. I mean, to me, it kind of felt a little out of left field when he said, hey, I'm going to kill you. I'm killing all of these super soldiers. You think I wanted more of you guys? It felt a little weird. I mean, I get it. It was super soldiers, if you will, that eventually caused the death of his family. I get that. But I just wish that there was a little bit more exposition there. But look, honestly, these are nitpicks. The way you guys directed the airport scene, the way you guys directed this entire movie that made me feel the emotions of every single character. I understood why Vision chose what he chose. I understood where Wanda was. I understood what Black Widow was. I understood what was going on with Chadwick Boseman and the Black Panther character with T'Challa. Like, I loved everything about the way you directed your characters and the way you directed the entire narrative. I just wish that there was a little bit more regarding within the Zemo character. But anyway, all of that to say, you still get 2 points, guys. 2 points will go to this slice of the pie for the way that you managed to make me feel like our characters were in real danger of hurting one another. And the way you made this feel like a Captain America movie. Captain America was strong head leading the charge throughout this entire movie. And I loved it. And I love the way you ended with that character, Captain America, rescuing his people from the prison. Again, starting with Captain America, ending with Captain America. Absolutely love the work you guys did it. What did you guys think about this slice of the pie, the direction from the Russo brothers? Go ahead and give me some comments and below. Did you guys like what he had did with the Zemo character? Are you like me and thinking that, man, this was a refreshing villain for Marvel to have? Or do you think that, you know, they should have had a villain with a little bit more pizzazz, if you will? Comment in the section below and let me know. I'm going to give this slice a score and a verdict. And for this slice, the direction, it gets 90% of 20 points plus 2 extra bonus points. And that means it is an excellent slice. Now it's time to move on to the last slice of the movie pie, and that would be the experience. Oh, what can I say, folks? I'm a comic book fan, and this movie gave me everything that I wanted. Wow. Can I say the word fun? Can I say the word enjoyment throughout this entire film? I loved and I ate up, you know, everything that they gave us in this movie. My experience was great. My experience was very much on a high. I mean, there was a couple of things that took me out of the movie. You know, like, you know, and I mentioned it before. You know, some of the main things was, you know, what I mentioned is, you know, again, when finding out that Captain America knew about, you know, Tony Stark's parents being killed by Bucky, that took me out of the movie, which is significant considering that was the, you know, the final battle scene in the movie. And so throughout the battle scene, that I just kept scratching my head out of frustration. It's like, man, these guys shouldn't be fighting. In a sense that, you know, it was kind of ridiculous that Captain America knew about it. Now, I would have been okay. And I love the fact that Tony Stark wanted to, you know, go after Bucky because of it. I get that, especially when you have what you give us earlier in the movie with Tony Stark's, you know, memory about his parents, which, by the way, I love that scene, by the way. That was awesome. That was an amazing piece of technology. So I like the fact that, you know, Iron Man wanted to go after Bucky. I get that. But to just add, you know, that, you know, he knew about, knew about it. It's like, you know what? You didn't really need that detail. So that took me out of it. And you know, and of course the convenience of everything that took me out of it. But other than that, I enjoyed from start to finish. Like that opening sequence with Cap and his team going out the crossbones, that was amazing. I love the way they worked together. You know, it just, I enjoyed it. This movie gave me everything I wanted out of this and more. And here's the more, folks. The boldness of that airport scene. Like, one of the things I want to talk about is this. A lot of times in fantasy films and sci-fi films, and of course comic book films, you will have this group of people with all of these unique and powerful abilities. And for whatever reason, the directors, the movie studio or whatever, they don't want to let these heroes cut loose. It's one of my biggest problems that I have across the board, where sometimes movies don't let the heroes really cut loose. They almost kind of hold back for fear of, you know, overdoing the action or overdoing things. And I get that. And you don't want to overdo things. But occasionally when you get a movie like this that allow our heroes to really cut loose and show us what they're capable of, show us their abilities, I absolutely loved it. I love it. And that airport scene really gave us that. The heroes cut loose, folks. I loved every single moment of that scene. Every hero had a chance to have some kind of a shine. And it was all believable, and it was all told in a way that added to the story. It did not take away from the story. They didn't feel like that it didn't seem like they needed to pause the action. Pause the story in order to give us the action. They included and integrated the action within the movie, within the narrative. And I loved it. I was smiling ear to ear the whole time. By the way, I love, speaking of cutting loose, I love that Wanda got a chance to cut loose. Just, when she put Vision in his place, got a chance to really see what she's capable of. She got a chance to cut loose. I love that, Black Panther throughout this movie seemed like he just owning everybody that he's fighting. I loved it. He's cutting loose. Captain America's cutting loose. Iron Man's cutting loose. So anyway, I just love that. And, because of that airport scene, the fact that they did it in general, I got to give an extra bonus point about the general idea of that scene and how long it was. And the fact that you gave us, what I wanted out of a comic book movie. That's going to get an extra bonus point. What did you guys have? When you look at the sheer experience that you had walking in the movie, did you walk out unfulfilled? Did you walk out fulfilled to the max? Comment in the section below. Let me know what you guys think about this slice of the pie. What was your experience walking out of this movie? I'm going to give this slice a score and a verdict. And this slice, it gets 95% of 25 points plus an extra bonus point. And that means it is an excellent slice. Now it's time to move on to what I call Trey's tweaks before we get into the final verdict. And if you guys know the rules in Trey's tweaks, I'm going to, just mention up to at least 3 things, or at most, I should say 3 things that I would change within this movie that would have increased the score and the verdict of the movie as a whole. And the goal here is to only do up to 3 things. But the goal here is to just give some tweaks. So I'm not trying to change the vision that the studio had for this movie, but just some tweaks that would have increased the score. The first tweak is this, guys. I would have made it so that Zemo was somehow behind the Sokovia Accords. Now, I get it. The driving force was, of course, the backdrop of what happened in the Age of Ultron. And I get that. And then also what happened with Wanda in the beginning of the movie. I get that. However, again, the villain's entire goal is to break up the Avengers. And the thing that ends up breaking up the Avengers is it ends up being something that had nothing to do with the villain. So I just would have made it somehow that Zemo was the one that nudged the entry of the Sokovia Accords somehow, some way. I would have tweaked it in that way. The second thing that I would have changed is this. I would have added a single line from Zemo stating that he had planned to leak Iron Man's parents' death. Like somehow that's what his original plan was, is to gather the documentation, the video, and that he was going to leak the information, but somehow Iron Man came there anyway. I would have added some kind of line in there because as it stands, without that line, it just seems like he just somehow expected Iron Man to show up there, which there should have been no reason why he would have expected Iron Man to show up there. So, so I just would have added some kind of line that, showed that he had some kind of plan, but he just kind of rolled with the punches rather than somehow he just knew and the Iron Man was going to show up there. Or I would have added a line where he had stated, that maybe he did plan to, control the superhuman guys. And when he saw the video, he changed his plan. I would have added that too. Something along the line that would have taken away from the mega convenience and mega coincidence of what actually happened in the movie. And the last thing that I would have tweaked, I would have changed is, look, folks, I would have made it so that Captain America did not know about what Bucky did to Tony's parents. Simple as that. You guys heard me mention it several times. It clearly was a huge problem for me. Maybe it wasn't for you, but it was a huge problem for me. I would have made it because it added nothing other than it, being a convenient plot device to get Tony Stark to be mad at Captain America. But it just made no sense why. First, Captain America would have known about it. Two, why he wouldn't have told Tony Stark about it. So anyway, I just would have made it so that Captain was just a surprise to find it out as Iron Man. Those are my tweaks. What are your tweaks, guys? If you were to give up to 3 things that you would have changed about the movie, what would they be? Comment in the section below and let me know. And now it is time to go ahead and give the overall score and verdict of this movie. But before we do that, we're going to dive into a brief slice recap. If you guys remember the screenplay, I said that it was a good slice, earning 18.8 points. The performances, we said that it was an excellent slice, earning 19.4 points. The visual, we said it was a great slice, earning 5.3 points. The audio, we said it was a good slice, earning 3.9 points. The direction, we said it was an excellent slice and it earned 20 points. The experience, we also said it was an excellent slice and it earned 24.8 points. If you add all of that up, you get 92 points. Out of 100 points, that's 92%. But what does that mean for Captain America Civil War? Let's find out. Captain America Civil War is an excellent movie. So if this movie was a pie, it would be totally tasty. But there you have it, folks. That is my score, my verdict for Captain America Civil War. It is an excellent movie. I think that if it was a pie, it would be totally tasty. What about you guys? What is your score and verdict for Captain America Civil War? What are your thoughts? Feel free to discuss it below. And then here we have it, folks. Here's the posing question for this movie pie. If Thor and Hulk was in this movie, who do you think that they would choose? Would they choose Captain America? Would they choose Iron Man? Would both of them choose the same guy, or would both of them choose different guys? Which side would they be on? Go ahead and vote. Comment below. Tell me your answer. And as always, guys, thank you so much for sticking it out with me through the movie pie. I am so grateful for you guys. And if it's the first time that you're checking it out, please feel free to subscribe. If you like this video, give it a thumb up. But yeah, go ahead and subscribe, guys. Become a member of our community. I love you guys. I really love being a film fan. I love talking movies. As you can see, I love talking about movies in detail. If you do too, please share this video as well. Share it with your friends. Check out some of these other movie pies if you haven't seen them yet. But again, guys, thank you so much for sticking it out. This is an awesome conversation. But now it is time for me to sign off. So until the next slice of pie, peace out.